and I am the Director of Planning and Sustainability here in the city of Bowie. And on the staff here tonight, we have Lexi Willems, who you all know, I'm sure. The other one of our star team is Tiffany Wright. She's on here, and she'll be looking at the chat, responding to it where it makes sense to, and just helping us answer questions and such. And also in our shop, another one of our stars, Ridwan Coker, and he'll be helping with answering some of the questions as well. And Lexi and I are going to share the presentation part, so you don't get bored with one or the other of us. We're here to go over the environmental action plan, the rough draft that we're in the middle of the 2-week comment period, and we thought it was prudent of this session situated essentially in the middle of that period to give an overview of the plan, how we got here, what we're doing with it, summarizing the recommendations. I'm not going to obviously be going into detail of each and every one, but we'll be going over them. We have a week left, just about a week, next Wednesday, to get the comments in. So this, for those of you who have not commented yet, or may have a couple of questions, or just want some orientation to the plan, this should help augment your comments. Certainly, we'll take questions and comments tonight, but our primary goal of doing this was to really give people an overview of the plan, get people oriented to them, make sure to it, and seeing what the key recommendations are. So that's our priority, but we're happy to take comments and questions tonight as well. We're going to give you a little bit of background on the plan, of course, and then the plan is divided into, and we'll show this in a minute, but the plan is divided in different sections, and then we'll take questions relevant to each section, like energy, for example. It's one of the sections of the grouped in 5 different sections of recommendations. So we'll take some comments for that section, so you don't have to wait totally to the end to ask all your questions. And we intend to go till 8 or 8:30. So any other housekeeping kind of things I want to check here before we move on with the slides. I know that Lexi mentioned this is being recorded, and I think that's it as far as the high level sort of initial kickoff item. So if we could, Lexi, can you fire up the PowerPoint?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is that I will be posting the recording on our website. So if you know of anyone who wasn't able to make it, you can direct them to the webpage that Tiffany has linked, or we'll send the link before the end of it. Yeah, so I will go ahead and start sharing.
Okay. So as Lexi's getting this, there we go. Okay. So again, the environmental action plan is a draft, and we'll say this again later, but our plan is to have the plan complete in December. That's our target, and we're hoping to get done by the end of the calendar year, and take it to City Council. So that's our basic schedule. And again, we'll mention this again as well. We're in the middle of the 2-week comment period, and that ends next Wednesday. And the draft went up online last week. So what is this plan about? Well, this plan, it builds on many of the city's efforts, and I think I've covered. Thank you. I covered most of these items, so I just want to mention a little bit here. Go back to what the plan is about. So this plan, it builds on the city's efforts over the years for environmental sustainability and climate action, and more specifically, what this plan does is it combines and updates both the climate action plan, the city's climate action plan, and its sustainability plan. Both those plans needed some updating, and we decided that to do a couple things at one time. so we can't chew gum and walk at the same time. We are updating them essentially by combining them and having them both in this environmental action plan, or the EAP, as we often call it. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the work to date, I know that many of you on tonight and plenty of others as well have been involved in the plan. We started in April. I have a consultant, Blue Strike Environmental, that's helping us with the plan. And we had a public engagement session back in May. That was an in-person session at the Kent Hill Center. And then we had an online survey, and it ran from May to June. And now here we are in October, and we're working to get specific sister agency city department feedback on the recommendations, and seeing where they feel it make them more detailed and which ones they're more focused on than others. So we're getting that feedback, and then we're getting the comment from residents, from the public as well. So that's where we are. And now I think I'm turning it over to Lexi to go over this next slide, right? Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of mention this quickly. So this is the greenhouse gas inventory for Bowie. I believe that this is the 2023 year. So when we think about plans like this, one of the big pieces we're looking at as a sustainability department is greenhouse gas reduction. And so when you look at the breakdown for Bowie, we're looking at over half of our emissions coming from transportation, and then 38% comes from buildings. So it's not always necessarily what people want to talk about building electrification. Doesn't always come off as the most exciting, but it is very important. With that said, though, this is, one important part of the plan, but an environmental action plan generally is a bit more general. It's not super specific like maybe a climate action plan would be, with, having really specific target reductions by a certain year that is included as a part of this plan. But I just wanted to mention that the greenhouse gas breakdown is helpful context, because part of this plan is looking at greenhouse gas reduction, but it's not the only part of it either.
Okay, so now it's back to me for a little bit, but don't worry, you'll get Lexi back in a few minutes. So I think for those of you familiar with these issues, everything is related to everything else quite often in the environment. But we did break them up into these 5 categories. And as we got input from the public and began to get draft ideas, recommendations down, begin to flesh them out, these were the categories that kind of emerged that we thought made sense to organize the many recommendations that we have. And if you look at, and so you can see those categories again, they aren't foreign to you, I'm sure: green spaces and natural resources, stormwater management, green infrastructure, waste management, transportation and mobility, energy efficiency, renewables. And if you look below that, it's listing the structure, if you will, and this is going to be somewhat important as we talk about what the breakout is, the details of the recommendations. So I use the term recommendations generally, but they're really, the recommendations come in the form of, I guess, 3 tiers is the way to describe it. So it's the broad goals, and they'll come under each of these categories. And then each of the goals have several strategies, and some will have more than others. And then, and you'll see those, all of them in the slides in a minute, in the framework, the structure that we have. Then under each of the strategies are specific actions. And we didn't list all those because there's many of them. They're pretty specific most of the time. Some are more specific than others, and some of them are longer term than others. Some of them are more policy based, and some are very action based. So it's a real diversity of actions. But we're not listing all those. They're certainly in the draft plan, and as we go through and highlight what the strategies and the goals are. We'll characterize, we'll summarize some of the actions. But if we listed every single action on the slides, we'd be here a very long time. So I just want to be clear about that. And again, they are all in obviously the draft that you can see. And if you have questions about them, we can certainly answer it. I'm going to take the first category of recommendations, green spaces and natural resources. And again, just as a reminder, instead of making them wait till the very end for all questions, we're going to, within each grouping of each category of the recommendations, we'll take questions relevant to that section. But I guess one request we have, and we want to respond, answer as many questions and such as we can with you all tonight. But we do want to try to not get down into the weeds, so to speak, too much tonight. There's still a week left for comments. So if you have really a lot of specifics on something, you can certainly email us or call us. But we're happy to tackle what we can tonight. It's I'm trying to communicate here. So here we are, the green spaces and natural resources. And the goals are in the upper, the higher level, and then you can see here on the slide, there are strategies under each of the goals. So the first one is expand and maintain the urban tree canopy and reach a goal of 50% coverage within the city. And so some of the strategies to achieve that goal are to increase tree planting on city-owned public property, support tree planting on private property, and some of the more specific actions are different programs to plant trees. Again, and it mentions up there, but whether it's on city property or on private property, homeowners. And working with community associations and building up some of the programs we have had in the past to incentivize tree plantings. So we're working on those recommendations and those programs to do that, and partnering with other groups to get trees planted and to replanting damaged, diseased, or dead trees. And targeting areas for plantings where appropriate, education and outreach on the issue, and then green spaces, natural resources in general, and some of these you all certainly worked on in the past, but trying to really promote and plant pollinators, again, on both city-owned properties and on private property, working with private property owners, homeowners, businesses, what have you, to get more pollinator coverage out there, converting some of the turf lawns to pollinators. So, turf to pollinators, we'll see how many acres we can get on that, but we've already started some of those discussions within city government about converting some of the city lawn areas that are mowed and converting some of those to pollinator areas. And then lastly, more of a broader action item under this category is sustainable development, working to try to limit impacts to green natural areas from development in the first place. So that is that category summarized. And so can pause here for a moment if people have a question or a comment they want to make at this point before we move to the next section.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yes, this is Elizabeth Otwell. The goal is being increased to 50% coverage, or to achieve that goal, I guess, is my question. And what is it currently?
Yes, that's 40. A great question. I should have said that before. It's 47, right? 47%? Is that where we are?
So we're actually at 45%. I was getting ready to type, so sorry about that delay. But
Fine.
yeah, so council set a goal in 2012 of 45%, and we actually got a report like just a few days ago that we are at 45%. So we're, kind of looking at what we need to do moving into the future since we've already met that goal. So great question. Yeah.
Yes, we don't
And
want
then,
to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so I had a follow-up question. How is that goal going to be integrated into like future developments? So when we go in and develop something and remove the canopy, is there going to be offset or something, or just increase canopy in spaces where it's feasible?
So
we
both.
want.
I'll defer to Rich, but kind of both.
Yeah, no, the answer is correct. Thank you, Tiffany. It is both. So we want to increase it where we can, for sure, regardless of new development. And as you may know, there are forest conservation or woodlands laws at the local level, required at the state level, and implemented at the local level. And the county just had a significant upgrade to their, they call it the Woodlands Ordinance. And just, I want to make sure everyone's aware, Bowie and all the rest of the municipalities in Prince George's County are unique except for Laurel, and that we do not have our own planning and zoning authority. So we work with the county on that. But that is, it's a very, like I said, very unique situation, but it's the way things are set up here. So we work with them, and like I said, they went through a significant upgrade to that law. That's not to say that no trees will ever be cut down for new growth, but the law really seeks to achieve, one of the things they strengthened in it is to set no net loss through development as more than a goal, but the way the ordinances are really supposed to work in aggregate for development. So that is something as that is getting implemented, and it's fairly new. I think it was upgrade, the amendments to the ordinance. The new ordinance was adopted, and there were a few tweaks to it just recently, this last spring. So for us, what that means for us is as developments go through the development review process that we engage in, but it really is the county's process. We want to make sure that we're tracking those and making sure that that provision of the county code is being implemented correctly. So it's a long answer to your question, but we want to plant trees where it makes sense, where we can, again, whether it's on city property, or encourage private property owners to do that, and help provide incentives and help do some targeting. And then lastly, try to really be on top of the development review process to make sure that we're doing all we can to protect forest stands of trees and forests.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Looks like John has his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah, I think another complexity of the answer to that is that there's a age distribution of trees in Bowie. So aside even from development, you've got a situation where the older Levitt neighborhoods are getting to the point that a lot of the trees are now older and diseased, and so we may be losing more trees in those areas. And then you have some newer parts of the city that were more recently developed where the tree canopy is expanding. And so I think it's the key strategy then is to try to provide enough incentive programs so that residents will replace trees when they lose them on their property as they age in the Levitt areas and some of the older areas of the city that that there be enough incentives to get them to replant those so that there's not a net loss.
Right, right.
Very true.
Yeah. That is a really good point, John. I appreciate that, because it's not only saving trees and planting new ones, it's taking care of the ones that are there, or responding to issues, whether it's disease or, trees don't last forever. They last a long time, most of them, but they do die over time. Some of the things that people have been noticing as well over the more recent years is that partly because of climate change, some tree species that used to thrive in Maryland have been more susceptible to disease because of climate change, and so that's an issue to keep track of as well. I don't know if the information is out on this yet, but it will be soon. There's some issues with some trees on Bel Air Drive, the beech trees. That's a very specific, relatively limited number of trees, but some trees that are pretty well known. So the Department of Community Services will be putting out some information about that soon. That's a very specific, focused issue, but the broader issue is important to note, and that is that paying attention to the diversity and health of the trees that are here now is important as well. So I got focused on the trees. Lexi, remind me, did I hit the other two? I think I just did the first goal, right? I didn't get to the other two goals on the slide, right? Native,
yeah, I guess it was mostly tree talk.
Yeah.
You did mention some of the HOA stuff, but I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Okay, to make sure that I'm not skipping over something here, I got focused on the trees. So the other goal is increase native and ecological landscapes across the city, and adopt the native trees policy, native plants, policy for municipal facilities, promote native landscaping on private property with HOAs and businesses and residents. And then the last one in here is enhance habitat connectivity and biodiversity. And we mentioned this some already, but the pollinator corridors, pollinator gardens, and habitat patches is kind of the green infrastructure concept. And then mentioning protecting the green space. So those are things in this category. If no one has any more questions or I don't see any hands up, we can move to the next one if that works okay with people.
I don't see anyone's hands up. I will mention, for anyone who's not familiar, this picture is of the Green Team's pollinator garden at the senior center. So in the spirit of habitat connectivity and biodiversity, it's their pollinator garden, which is pretty cool.
Very good.
Alrighty. Let's see.
I believe you're taking the next one, I think, Lexi. Nope. That's
no, I think this one's you. Yeah.
It is. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Okay, so next category, broad category, stormwater management and green infrastructure. So again, there's three key goals with some strategies underneath of them. So the first goal here on those categories: restore and protect natural systems that filter and slow stormwater. And the two key strategies on there is to develop a comprehensive watershed plan, and then the other strategy is increase riparian and stream bank plantings. So just what I would say a little bit on the watershed plan. We don't have a watershed plan in the city. We have, obviously, we drain to the Patuxent. We have a number of streams that are important in the city. Some are in better shape than others. Some are more urban than others. And there's a number of things that occur along the streams. There's retrofits from time to time. There's stormwater facilities, and some are more impacted and barren than others, and some are, run mostly through parks or relatively undeveloped lands. And the watershed plan would help us sort of organize that information and prioritize areas for retrofits or for other treatments that make sense. It also gives an opportunity to connect some of the broader environmental resource protection kind of issues with stormwater management requirements and our MS4 work that we partner with our Department of Public Works on. So one of the sort of more policy programmatic recommendations here is to develop a watershed plan for the city. And then the other, as I mentioned, increase riparian stream bank plantings to help protect those streams. Some of the actions, in addition to those that would be part of this, is to target some priority streams through the planning effort, identify stream health. I mentioned before, but coordinate with the stormwater management programs and facilities, advocate and incentivize and city-owned property, seek to get pervious pavement, bioswales, and more infiltration, seek and target areas for stream and stormwater retrofits, and of course, education and engage of the residents. So that's the overview for this section. And again, like we did before, happy to pause here and to take questions or comments on this category.
Was that for all the goals?
Sorry?
Did you talk about private property too?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Lexi.
Did you talk about private property as well?
Yes, maybe
Okay.
didn't emphasize enough.
I may have missed it. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so we want to work. Oh, if I missed it, maybe I did. But we want to work with residents, private residents, on their property to incentivize rain gardens, pollinator gardens, and other things that they can do to enhance the retention of stormwater on their property. We have one term we came up with, rain ready or something like that. I think we were talking about coming up with some incentive programs and education with property owners, again, to look at stormwater holistically. And certainly one of the effects of climate change is more and more intense storm events. So we've been in a dry period lately, but the trend is certainly to have more storm events, and for those storm events to be more intense.
And this picture is actually at one of our stormwater ponds that Tiffany's been working with the Environmental Advisory Committee on converting some of the turf to pollinator habitat. And you can see it's quite pretty. Does anybody have any questions? Looks like there's one in the chat. Tiffany, I don't know if you want to answer that one out loud or in the chat.
I was just answering it on the chat, but I can expand on my answer a little bit. So we do have an HOA technical assistance program. The goal, and it didn't start because of erosion, but that is certainly something that can be addressed through the process. And if you have a specific HOA that you're thinking of, and your name seems very familiar, so I feel like we may have spoken about this before, but please reach out to me. My contact is in the answer above your question. But the short answer is kind of, and the long answer is long. So I'm happy to chat with you, if you'd like.
Any other questions? It's not really letting me see the chat or if anyone has their hands up. So.
No hands and no unaddressed chat questions. So we're good.
All righty. Well, then with that, we'll move on. So the next one is waste management. And waste management's a very big topic. for us, we're focusing on kind of three main goals. So you can see one of them is focused on food waste diversion, one of them is focused on recycling rates and participation, and then one of them is about reducing waste. So for the food waste diversion program, we are one of the strategies to expand the curbside food waste program citywide by 2029. So for those of you who don't know, we have a curbside collection program in the I section. It's like over kind of behind the elementary school name is escaping me.
Yorktown.
Yorktown. Yeah, Y. It's like the Y section and the I section, all that good stuff. So yeah, it's over there right now, and we want to expand it. We've had a lot of interest from residents in expanding it. So that's one of the key strategies here is to slowly, it wouldn't be rolled out, at one time, but to slowly but surely expand the curbside program so that residents would be able to participate no matter where they lived in the city. Another strategy for this is to increase access to food drop-off composting sites. So this picture here is a picture of our food waste drop-off site at the Ken Hill Center, which has been quite successful. It started in December of 2023, and it was so successful that we had to double the bins. So initially we had 2 bins, and they were getting so full, and people were getting mad because they couldn't drop their stuff off. So we got 2 more bins, which has helped a lot. But we have some residents who prefer the curbside model and some residents who would rather not have food waste on site at their home, and they would rather be able to take it elsewhere. So increasing access to drop-off sites is another one, and we looked at some potential sites for expansion. Another goal is to increase recycling rates and participation. So improving general public space recycling infrastructure, and also residents tend to really love the special recycling collection events that Public Works does. So looking to expand those in terms of styrofoam recycling, e-waste. So that's electronic waste from old laptops, phones, cords, batteries. Tiffany really recently started a battery recycling program, so you can now recycle batteries through the city. But those are particularly helpful because you have a lot of difficult to recycle things and people don't know what to do with them. So we want to try to expand those because they have been generally quite successful. And then just generally promoting waste reduction. So we know that the 3 R's that everyone always says are often taken out of context, and they are supposed to have an order. So it's not just reduce, reuse, recycle in whatever order. It's supposed to be to reduce first. And so we really want to work to educate more residents about preventing waste and reducing the amount of things that even need to be composted or sent to the landfill or sent to a recycling facility, because that's ultimately what is the most sustainable, is to reduce your output entirely. So we want to do some more education about this and encourage it in businesses as well. And then for some of the specific actions for this, I've talked about a lot of them, about identifying additional sites for food waste compost sites, more signage for recycling, and more public education on our social media channels and things like that. More hard to recycle events like I was talking about. And we also want to feature more success stories. So that's something that we've seen to be pretty successful too, is to show success stories of not just showing all the things to do, but show actually, other residents doing those things, whether it's dropping off food waste or recycling properly or reducing waste. So those are some of the actions that we want to look at for this category. Does anybody have any questions about this one? I know this is kind of a big topic.
I answered a question over in the chat and just realized I'm not on mute. So you all might have heard me typing it. But yeah, thank you for the comment, Jeanette. Yes, we hope to have Public Works, they're hoping to increase their shred event. So there's the question of timing and budget and that sort of thing. But yeah, great question.
Any other questions? Are we good to move on? I don't think I see any hands. All righty. Guess we'll keep it moving then.
Okay, I think I'm doing this one. And
I'm supposed
transportation.
to do this one, but you're welcome to if you'd like to, Rich.
Oh, you go ahead. They'd probably rather hear from you than me. You're got it.
So this category is for transportation and mobility. So this is also quite a big topic, especially as I mentioned at the top of the presentation. Transportation is the largest greenhouse gas contributor in Bowie, and that's very typical of suburban towns where you have to drive pretty much everywhere. So it's a pretty big greenhouse gas reduction potential with this category. A lot of the solutions are not necessarily things the city can directly control. So you can see with this one of our goals, it's actually the bottom one, is to look at enhancing regional and local access through partnering with other agencies. So that looks like, the county and things like that, and also promoting transit use when possible. And then going back up to the top, this can also look like prioritizing future development that prioritizes walkability instead of, as having cars being the default every single time, looking at development that makes it so that people can walk sometimes if they want to. And also expanding clean transportation options and EV infrastructure. So we have a good bit of chargers in the city for EVs. We're also working on electrifying the municipal fleet. The police department has electrified a couple of their vehicles, and our finance department works, my cat saying hello. Our finance department works pretty heavily to look at the options that we have to retire models when they are, no longer working, so that we can replace them with EVs. We also want to improve active transportation infrastructure. So completing and connecting the Bowie byway system to adjacent public trails, and again, expanding pedestrian amenities in terms of development and just support on the ground, but also bicycle amenities as well. Does anybody have any questions about this one? I think I see a hand. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jeanette. Can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, we can.
Hey, great. Last time I used Zoom, it didn't work, but I've suddenly lost all my noise here. So, quick comment. So the level 2 chargers, there are a few around Bowie, and they aren't as useful to people coming through that need, that fast charge. They're great for commuters where you're sitting in your office and the car's getting charged while you're not there. But I think, if we could focus on more of the DC fast charge, the level 3, that would be fantastic for not only the citizens of Bowie, but also all of our friends that are coming through the Route 50 corridor and stopping at our restaurants and coming in for our sports events at Allen Pond and such. I think it would really add a lot to, putting Bowie on the map as a place you can stop and charge your car quickly.
Definitely. That's a really good point. Please do send that in to our email so that we have that in writing. But yes, you make a lot of good points.
Will do. Thank you.
Were you gonna say something, Rich?
No, I'm just nodding my head because it's great to hear, because that is, we want more EV, but certainly getting those level 3s where we can, for the exact reasons that she said. It's a heavily traveled corridor, so Route 50, 301, and the other roads as well, and so give people another reason to come into our town.
Definitely. Elizabeth?
Yes, I'm somewhat aware of the expansion of the trailways and whatnot, but the bullet point about expand bicycle and pedestrian amenities, can you provide a little more detail on that? That's kind of vague. I'm just curious.
Yeah, let me pull up some of the actions for that.
And while you're doing that, Lexi, certainly Ridwan is online here, and he could elaborate as well. Yeah,
so I'll go ahead and go just based on what's in the plan, and then Ridwan, if you want to add anything, feel free. But the actions specifically we have for this one are to install bike racks in high traffic areas and parks. This is Redwan recently got a grant on behalf of the city, and we'll be getting some new bike racks pretty soon, which is exciting. So that's one example. And then again, ensuring that new developments provide safe pedestrian connections to public infrastructure. So just providing that as an option in future developments to connect to, walkable places instead of, the car being the default all the time. And then also implementing crosswalk and intersection safety improvements. We've looked at this a lot for school zones. The city does have a complete streets policy. So it could be, in theory, implemented everywhere, but improving, pedestrian visibility, crosswalks, and things like that. Is there anything that comes to mind that you want to add, Ridwan?
No, the only thing that I expand on is the bike racks. So that will be the most upcoming thing that that we will be introducing. Currently on our schedule, we want to have those in the ground by spring of 2026. So once we get all the material from the manufacturer, we will get with our Parks and Grounds team and our community services department to get those installed.
Thank you. We're very excited about that.
And Lexi, I see a couple questions in the chat. One about, can you get a bike trail to the new Giant down there in South Lake? I assume that's Giant that's being referred to. And Ridwan's going to have more information on this, but I know that there's a trail system planned, and some of it might be there now in the South Lake area. And Ridwan, you have any more information you can share on that?
So according to if we're talking about the South Lake development, there are currently trails that go within the South Lake development. Nothing that connects to what we already have existing. I want to say in north and mid on our midsection of Bowie, but further down the line, when we start connecting more of our trails, we will start to see if we can have some sort of connection to South Lake. And the biggest thing that we're doing now will be the 214 overpass bridge. So that will be the biggest thing that will be able to connect the South Lake trails to the rest of our trails that we have.
Once we get it funded.
And the too.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're all alive to see it happen.
Right.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I could comment on each of the last three topics if I can remember. So yeah, the Central Avenue Bridge, I know there have been discussions between the county and Park and Planning and the city about that. So there definitely is interest in creating a bridge, and that would be great in being able to connect trail systems south of Central Avenue with the byway system north of it. Let's see now. I was going to say something. Oh yeah, about the amenities. I guess the city does have a complete streets policy, and so I think, and there also is a capital improvement complete streets program. So I think that is a way that intersections and streets can be reconfigured to make them more friendly to pedestrians and bikes. I think one example so far is crossing Northview Drive down at Allen's Pond. There's a nice sort of complete streets arrangement that's made it much safer now for pedestrians and bikes to cross from the north side of the road to the Allen Pond side. So that's one example of a complete streets solution there that's been helpful. And there's more, I know, being planned. I guess originally I put up my hand with the EV charging stations. I guess the question I have is there going to be attempt to dialogue with some of the private commercial properties to try to get level 3 chargers there, such as the Bowie Town Plaza or other places such as that. I know they have some chargers already, but that would be good if we can also get some of the shopping malls and places where there's restaurants and where people, will stop for a half hour to an hour at a time to charge.
I would say the short answer is yes, when we can. Bowie Town Center is a unique example, and I'll kind of let Rich speak to that. But I think yes, when we can. Do you want to elaborate, Rich?
Just two quick things. I not sure of the status, but I'm pretty sure the county passed an ordinance a year ago for new development requiring a certain level of commercial development to be EV ready. That means you're running the conduits and such so that the areas can be readily hooked up to EV charging stations. I don't have a lot of detail on that right now. And then Lexi mentioned the Bowie Town Center, and as some of you may know, the City Council has directed the Economic Development Committee to come up with a vision for revitalizing the Bowie Town Center. And so that's something that's being contemplated. It's very, very, very early stages of that. But we're hopeful in the long term that an effort can come about, because the city doesn't own it, but that the city can promote, incentivize, partner to rejuvenate, revitalize that area, and certainly, green would be part of that. But that's there's still a very high level, 30,000 foot level, what could be redeveloped there, kind of thing. But I would imagine if that comes to fruition, that there would be EV chargers there.
I see Olivia's question in the chat about shopping centers along 450, and I think this is a pretty good question. I would have to do some digging on that, to be completely honest, but especially since it is private property and we're a little bit more limited in what we can do. But definitely send it to us via email, and we can look into it and see. It really does depend on what the property owners want a lot of times. So I'm not sure if it will be worth contacting the property owners for those as well. Rich, do you have anything to say about that?
I was going to say, one thing I'm hearing from a couple of the comments here, and what John was saying as well, is, I think when we're talking about EV chargers, we're I think so far, and this is why it's good to have the input, we've been thinking about what we can do at city facilities, right? And then what we can try to promote and get with new development. But I'm not sure how much we've talked yet about existing development. And most of the development we're going to get is here now, right? So I think it's good feedback to get, and to look back at the details of the draft plan and seeing if we need to enhance some of the discussion about EV charging, and coming up with incentives to retrofit, if you will, EV charging stations in some existing commercial properties. So that's definitely a great idea. I don't.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think it's something that it makes sense to add, I think.
Yeah. Jeanette, I see your. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to echo, I think that's great, kind of getting your ducks in a row about how to pitch that to like the Chamber of Commerce or existing, private property owners, whether it's in a mall or in a standalone property like McDonald's or something like that. Just spending the time and putting the resources into putting that case together is a worthy exercise. Over.
Right.
Definitely. Any other questions, or we want to move to our last category? Don't think I see any. All right, I'm gonna move right along. So the last one we have is energy efficiency and renewables. So for this one, we're looking at municipal operations for energy efficiency to reduce costs and emissions. We have looked at replacing a lot of facility, the things that run the facility, HVAC systems, things like that. We've been working on looking at how we can replace those with high efficiency alternatives at their end of life. And then also transitioning the municipal heating and cooling systems to clean energy as well. We are also working to increase local renewable energy generation and storage capacity. So that means expanding solar PV on municipal property. We don't have a ton of buildings where we could do this, but we do have a couple. So that's something that we're looking at, is which city facilities could we look at installing solar on. And then also promoting community solar participation, because although the city, we do have direct control over our own buildings, the biggest difference that could really come is from residents. So trying to promote community solar, and also looking at programs and options that we can educate residents about, to look at residents also going renewable, whatever that may look like for them. And then we also want to help residents reduce community-wide building use through efficiency and electrification. So this is looking like, encouraging electrification of appliances when they reach their end of life, and expanding access to residential and commercial energy efficiency programs. So we do have a energy audit program for residents where they can receive an energy audit for completely free. So it's trying to look at those, little ways that we can entice residents, on top of, working on the municipal buildings of what we can replace, but also trying to figure out ways that we can engage residents, so that they can do things on their own property. Does anybody have questions about this one? Oh, and this picture is of the city's solar array. It's 2.5 megawatts.
So let's just add something super quick here before we take questions. One is, and I don't think you mentioned this, but this has been 3 years ago now in the General Assembly. There was major legislation that set goals and other parameters for renewable energy. So a number of things. There's more details about this in the plan document, but that's I guess one way to look at it is a good backstop to have, if you will, because that is state level, and there's things that we should do in the city to meet the requirements of that law the next several years. So that's just another important piece of this category. Climate Solutions. Yeah, Climate Solutions Now Act, right? Is that the proper term?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what Rich is referring to specifically is what we call BEPS. It's Building Energy and Performance Standards. And it basically means that municipal facilities over a certain size have to meet certain clean energy metrics, and eventually probably also efficiency metrics. So it's just the state basically showing support for renewables and energy efficiency and things like that. So we are trying to look at what we can replace to comply with that. So yeah, that's a very good point, Rich.
Thanks.
Any questions about this one? I don't think I see any hands. Oh, John. Yeah, see your hand.
Yeah, I just did want to actually congratulate the city on the fact that it has been fairly progressive in putting solar panels on buildings. I think it should be mentioned that I think it's 5 of the city buildings already have solar panels, as well as this solar farm is going to be doubled, I think, in the next year. So you're going to end up with 5 megawatts. So the city has been very proactive already on this front.
Thanks, John. Does anybody else have comments or questions? Catherine? Did you have a question, Catherine?
Yeah, I had a question. I don't know a ton about it, but I have read some concerns about how to dispose of solar panels when they break or, when they reach the end of their life. So I'm just curious. I know earlier in the presentation, we're talking about recycling batteries so they don't end up in the landfill because of the bad outcomes that can happen with that. So I guess I was just curious, is there a plan in place, like if we're trying to increase solar both residential and business wise, like how will that impact the environment down the road? Again, when they break, when they need to be disposed of, do they have recycling options, or are we going to be like chasing our tail where it's like we're doing clean energy now, but then kind of paying for the ramifications of it later with, some of the things that it might be leaking out into the environment when we do try to dispose of it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm The short answer is it's probably something we need to look at a little bit more. But I do think that the panels, if and when they were installed, we are looking at usually at least a 20-year life. So it's not something that, like, the scope of this plan would be within the next decade. So it's probably not something that would necessarily be dealt with in this plan, but it's definitely something that we do need to look at broadly, to have to know those answers. Because yeah, that's a really good point. Rich, is there something that you want to add, or anybody else?
Yeah, the solar farm is owned and managed by Tesla, so it would basically be their responsibility to replace panels as they needed with more efficient ones and to do whatever proper disposal was required.
True, and there are many different solar purchasing options, for not only for the city but for residents as well. So there are many residents who have solar on their homes, but they don't necessarily own it themselves. So, like John said, it would be a situation where the company would take that responsibility to for maintenance and everything like that. But it's still a really good point. Any other questions? All righty. Well, Rich, do you want to talk about next steps?
Sure. Just to wrap this up here. So we're going to next, as we mentioned a few times, the comment period ends next Wednesday. And you see there the email to which you send your comments to, and the documents online. Like I said, it's been up for a week, so we're essentially halfway through that, which is how we timed this meeting. From there, we're going to take comments and revise the draft. There's other tweaks I think we want as staff just to get it, more closer to a final form, and then the endpoint, at least in the document, when you have a plan, it's never done, right? Because you're implementing it and then you're updating it. But the next step as far as the plan document goes is we would take it to city council for them to adopt it, to take it and review it and bless it, so to speak. And we're hoping to do that in December. And if we don't make that deadline, we certainly would do it in the very early part of January. So essentially, we're looking to get this done by the end of the calendar year and then move into an implementation phase. I think what we'll find is once we have the document and the plan complete and the recommendations, there'll be some recommendations that I think are pretty clear, pretty straightforward, and we can move on those. There's others that will take funding. Some will take some pretty significant funding. Others will take partnerships, and others will be some longer term policy kinds of things. So there's a range of recommendations, as you saw, and there's a range of ways to implement them. And what we want to do on an annual basis is to take an approach, an action agenda or something like that, where we're looking annually at what piece of the plan we're going to focus on that calendar year in our implementation, and then annually report on what we got done, or the status of things, and then what we're doing in the next year. And the lifespan of this plan, we're looking at 10 years, but thinking about updating it, or at least considering an update around the 5-year time frame. So that's, in a nutshell, is how we're looking to implement it, and to be successful in implementing it. It's not just us and our small department. Obviously, we'll need to work very closely with the rest of the city, especially Public Works and Community Services, and others as well in the city, but definitely those two main departments. And then certainly with the county on aspects, with the state and others, excuse me, and the residents here in the city, businesses. So it's all hands on deck, really, if we want to be successful. But some items will be easier to move forward with on our own than others. But I think that's appropriate. It makes sense. It's what's needed, and the plan recognizes that. So that, in a nutshell, is what we're looking at. Next steps: finalizing the plan, taking it to City Council, and then moving forward to implement it. So I don't know if any of the other staff here have anything they want to add, or if there's any questions that people want to, or comments people want to have in the end. But that's what I have for you from my end. So thank you. I appreciate you all taking your time out this evening and participating.
Yeah, and Rich kind of mentioned this, but we definitely appreciate all of you hopping on and sharing some comments and questions and things that we definitely need to think about as we look at revising and things that we might want to add. It does help to have kind of written comments. So anything that you think is super important, whether you mentioned it tonight or not, it does really help for us to have that sent to us. So please do submit it to the email. I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see everyone again. So we got a couple hands raised. Elizabeth, were you going to say something, Tiffany?
I was just noting the hands that were up.
Okay, Elizabeth.
Hi, yes. My question is kind of related to what you just talked about, Lexi. Is there any inclusion in the plan for how to improve and increase residential feedback for any of the programs? I keep hearing that the more you guys have in writing or in a formal sort of feedback form, the easier it is to push to promote any goals that we're trying to achieve. So it's kind of hard for me, who is an engaged, environmentally conscious Green Bowie member that wants to provide feedback to the city and to the groups. It's hard enough for me to find ways to provide feedback, much less other citizens and residents that want to provide input. Is there anything in the plan that addresses that? Like, hey, we want to put up more signage with QR codes to increase visibility for, on the pathways for bikers and walkers, or at the solar farm. Hey, do you want to learn more about this? Do you want to provide your feedback on it? That kind of thing. I'm just wondering if that is in the plan, or if it's really not appropriate for the plan and it's addressed elsewhere, but just kind of big picture, how you're working to improve residential feedback.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because at trying to do anything like this, it's just difficult to get feedback a lot of times. So that's a really good question, and I definitely think that's something that I know that Ridwan's working on a wayfinding plan, which will involve signage on some of the trails and things like that. But even as we look at some of the other actions mentioned in the plan, like signage for recycling or composting and things like that, having a feedback option that's ingrained in the kind of product itself whenever it's posted is a really good idea, and that's not something that we typically do. So that's a pretty good idea. But we're open to suggestions if you have other ideas too. I'm not sure in terms of the plan specifically how it would fit. But it's something that we can definitely look at adding to make it easier for residents to provide feedback. So yeah, it's definitely something that we could look at. Tiffany, were you going to add something?
Yeah, it's not about this plan specifically, but I don't think people know that at every city council meeting, there's a time set aside at the beginning for anybody who lives in the city to come and talk to council about anything. And we would love to have y'all come and talk about this, or I mean, honestly, talk about anything. And I know our council members would like to hear from their constituents. And so just keep in mind that that's an option. I'm going to pull the link. You just have to sign up with the city clerk before the meeting, and I'm going to pull the link to the webpage with more information on that, and I'll put it in the chat. It is more of like an opt-in, and you kind of already need to be in the know to some extent. So I understand your point about you're a greenie, and there aren't a lot of people like you. So, that know where to go to provide input and that sort of thing, which is why I like your comment. But I just did want to put that out there because I'm not sure everybody knows. So hopefully now they do.
That's a good point. Council members like hearing from their constituents, and they're usually pretty likely to listen to them. So definitely a good point.
I was going to add real quick to that point and question, Lexi. So I think education and outreach is a common theme throughout the plan that we have, but the specific recommendations, that was from Elizabeth. Is that who was making that point? Yeah. So definitely want to think about that some more. I think what I was hearing from that was getting input on the plan is good, but then having some mechanisms where you're kind of perennially can get input on an environmental issue beyond just as we're building this plan, right? And so we don't, ensuring that we're not done, right? When this plan is done in the next couple of months, I want to be clear, we're not done getting input, for us, whether it's through our green teams, through Environmental Advisory Committee, or other things we do, events and such. We always want comments, but I think some of the things you mentioned but some of the specific examples I think are a helpful way to augment, give people other means of input. So appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I know in the past we've also done kind of like an environmental town hall where we talked about kind of all the environmental things going on, and it was really an opportunity for residents to talk. So we could also look at doing something like that in the future, because I think it's been a little while since we've done one. John, or were you going to say something else, Elizabeth? Because I saw you unmuted.
I wanted to say thank you. And I guess, yeah, you guys answered my question. And it is helpful to know about the way we can go and interact with council people. But I'm thinking of like my neighbor next door who works 2 jobs and maybe has thoughts and ideas, but doesn't have the time. She also is raising children, doesn't have the time to like go somewhere in person. But if you're sitting in a traffic light and there's a sign there and you can scan a QR code and you can be like, this traffic light is awful because there's no crosswalks, or just any like that on a very specific level, that's what I'm thinking. But on an overall global level, like how is increasing community feedback included in the plan?
Yeah.
And you guys answered my question.
Yeah.
And if there was maybe a way to expand on the education outreach part to include not just one-way information, but like a return or turnout of information from the community, that would be great.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because we incorporate a lot of those separately right now. We have a lot of scan the QR code for information, and then we also have a form on our website where people can send us stuff. But it's a good point to put those together, which is not something that we've typically done. So yeah, no, I like that a lot. John?
Thanks, y'all. And I'd be happy to send my comments in writing because I know that's helpful as well.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, this whole issue of communication was something that I planned to add to my written thing too. I know when we did the 2020 climate action plan, we had a section on resident outreach and the need to provide improved communication both for residents with the city, but also for the city to provide feedback on how well they're progressing on the various objectives and strategies and actions, etc.
Yeah, and that's something that will be incorporated in the state of the environment. So we do the state of the environment every fiscal
Right.
year. And since our
Right.
fiscal year it goes from July to June, we typically start on the state of the environment in July, and it's usually published in around August. So that's something that in the past, there was a climate action plan section where it was kind of, this is what the city committees have done. This is everything on the climate action plan, and the things that we have checked off or things that we're working on or things that we realize we can't do. And so we will have a huge, that'll be a really big part of the state of the environment moving forward, starting in fiscal year 26, since we'll do the report next August, will be to report out and say, okay, we're only 6 or 7 months in, but how are things going? What are we looking at for the next year? So yeah, that's definitely going to be a big part of the state of the environment, but also just making sure that we put that out in other ways other than just kind of the long form report, but through social media outreach and through the newsletter and the comm spotlight and things like that, of trying to boil some of it down so that people can read it in shorter spurts too, and not just full reports.
That we've talked about before is not just having the detailed long report, but also to have concise summaries of some of the more important features that are on the website, or like you say, provided in a easier way for residents to digest.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say, Elizabeth, is there are the city committees, and as the chair of the Environmental Advisory Committee, we certainly need more members. So anybody that has interest in environmental policy issues is certainly welcome to check out the Environmental Advisory Committee. Come to a meeting and join if you're interested. The same with the Green Team. Kind of the distinction that's made between the Environmental Advisory Committee and the Green Team is the Environmental Advisory Committee deals more with policy recommendations to council and staff, as opposed to the Green Team that works more on specific projects and actions.
And Tiffany just sent the link for committees. We're not the only ones with committees. Other departments have committees too. So I definitely encourage anyone who's interested to check those out. But
the Green Team has what subgroups that deal with transportation, multimodal transportation, with natural resources, with green schools. Do you still have a green school program?
Yeah, green schools, energy, outdoor recreation. You have all the different types of environmental people.
Yep.
Rich, were you going to say something?
Nope. No, you good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up committees, John, because committees are definitely a great way to get things done and to make your voice heard. Are there any other questions before we wrap up for the night? Don't think I see any, but we really do appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy lives, I'm sure, to join us and learn about the plan and to talk with us. You've definitely given me a lot to think about. I primarily do our outreach, so definitely given me a lot to think about of new ways that we could reach residents. So we really, really appreciate all of you taking the time to talk with us. And yeah, with that, I hope everybody has a good night.
Thank you, everyone. And please do your homework.